Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this award ceremony for the Global Award for Entrepreneurship Research 2026. This is the biggest award of its kind anywhere in the world, and it's now given out for the 30th time here in Stockholm. My name is Katrin Kielos. I'm an author and economics journalist with EFN and Finansmagasinet, and I will be your moderator for this afternoon's program. We are here today to celebrate research, entrepreneurship, and the long and demanding journey from academic knowledge to hopefully innovative companies and a changed world. That journey, as we will hear, is rarely simple and requires more than just the hand of God, which is the title of this sculpture by Carl Milles, which is part of today's prize. But first, I would like to invite Anders Broström, Managing Director of Entreprenörskapsforum, up here to the stage. Don't know if they've given you a microphone. No, just grab one. So this award has been given out for 30 years. What's the background and why is it still so relevant?
The fundamental idea is we believe in two things very much. We believe in entrepreneurship and innovation as core processes and phenomenon in a prosperous and a good society to live in, and we keep believing in that. And secondly, we believe that research on these phenomena has something to offer to the discussion how we may live with them, live from them, and promote them. So in that belief, we are extremely happy to each year bring some of the best minds, the people who have contributed the most to our understanding of entrepreneurship and innovation to Sweden to celebrate them and to celebrate research on entrepreneurship and innovation and to celebrate, of course, the very things themselves that keep sort of the gift that keep giving.
So tell us a bit more about the best minds. They are here today and we'll meet them shortly, but why these two in particular?
The prize committee has given a very powerful motivation for why these two received this year's prize. It all starts, as many things, with a war, a little bit. It starts with the Second World War, which showed the world that what science can do if put to certain use. So after the Second World War, governments were told that if you invest in science, great things will come from that. And the lesson of the atom bomb and other maybe not so great things, but certainly very powerful things that sort of were derived from fundamental research seemed to provide a very powerful reason for taxpayers to give up their money, for governments to give that money to researchers and for them to conduct research for the betterment of us all. But then, of course, over time, people started to wonder, are we sure they make the best use there is of this money? Are we sure that this innovation machine keeps flowing on nothing but basic research? Maybe there needs to be something that happens after research is done that makes sure this research is transferred into innovation, into commercialization, into something that also people actually use and improve us all. And in understanding how that happens, when it does not happen, what we can do about that, these two scholars have been foundational in paving the way for how we and governments and universities can do better with research.
And personally, what's the main thing you take away from their work?
I take away that there are reasons to believe that this engine has worked in the past. It has contributed to the technology transferred from basic research by entrepreneurs and by other actors in the ecosystem has made all the difference in the world, and that all the signs are there that this pattern with variations will be there tomorrow too, if we do things, if we play our cards right, if we put the right conditions in place for entrepreneurship with the research base.
So I hope the engine keeps running. Thank you very much, Anders Broström. We will now, engines, they can run and it can be quite messy down in the engine room. We're gonna move on and talk about research, the Foundation for New Innovative Technology Companies, and we will hear from two such founders. Please welcome Sara Torslund, co-founder and former CEO of Gradient Tech AB, and also Robert Rehammar, co-founder of Scaling. Please join me on stage. Sara, please tell us a little bit about Gradient Tech, for those of us who don't know this company and what you do.
Yes, I'll be happy to. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah. Great to be here. So Gradient Tech, we are based in Uppsala as a life science company. I co-founded Gradient Tech, I think 17 years ago. It is today, jumping to where we are today, today we have a diagnostic system on the market in clinical routine at a number of university hospitals around the world, where you are looking at which antibiotic should you treat a sepsis patient with. And I guess you have all heard about maybe the largest global health challenge that we are facing, the antibiotic resistance, where antibiotics don't work anymore because the bacteria have become resistant, and our diagnostic systems very rapidly tells the clinician which antibiotic you should treat the patient with. So it's been a long journey, but that's where we are today. Yes.
You told me when we spoke on the phone last week that it was an environment where it was very natural to start a company. It was more sort of, what company should you start based on your research?
And well, moving back those 17 years ago, it was research where I did my postdoc at Uppsala University, and I was in an environment at the university, it was within material science, where more or less every group leader was involved in some company. So there was like a challenge, like, which company are you going to start? So it was more like, okay, how do we get there? So I was kind of, through my PhD and postdocing, it was constantly about, say, working together with the companies that had been founded, thinking about how do we get this into a company. So I think that was fundamental just for the thought to start a company. But I mean, at that time, we didn't know about the application of antibiotic resistance testing. That came later on. But just say it, I think it was fundamental for me to just think that it was natural to form a company.
Robert, tell us about scaling. What do you do?
Okay. Yes. Hey, everyone. Nice to be here. Scalelink is a spin-off from Chalmers University, where I work as a researcher. It started about 4 years ago when we were scaling up the quantum computing research efforts that we are heading at Chalmers. And when I started there, we had some challenges to move on with the hardware that I started working on. And I started there in the pandemic, so it was, of course, a bit of a special situation. But after a while, we constructed something that we thought, wow, this could probably be used by others.
Why did you think that?
There was a clear need. There was a clear need for this kind of device that we constructed. And
how did you discover there was a need?
It was quite clearly when you looked at what people were doing in the community and what others were struggling with, that we saw that this is probably something others could get a use from. So we were extremely lucky. We were by accident actually put in contact with a couple of entrepreneurial students that wanted to run this from the commercial side, and they took it on, and it took
an accident. There are no accidents. What happened?
No, you're right. No, you're right. There was a chat on our internal Slack channel.
Yeah.
And these two students, they were in a rush finding a project. So someone asked, "Does anyone have something?" And we had just said the day before, "Oh, we have something that we would really like someone to take to the commercial side." So it was a lucky match in the time sense that everyone needed each other, but of course we were in the right place.
So 4 years for Robert, 17 years for you. What advice do you have? I mean, it's a long journey. What has been the challenges?
I mean, I've been the CEO of Gradient Tech for 17 years, and I would say now, much wiser now than I was at that time. You need a lot of enthusiasm. It takes a lot of time. I would, after all these years, say that it's about the team, it's about the people you find to collaborate with, and especially when, well, like this diagnostics medical device, heavily regulated, so you need senior competences. You need people who can take a lot of risk. So I would say what I've been doing through the years, I've been looking and finding people, looking for money. It's very much about financing, of course. Exploring the market. I've been in so many hospital labs through the years. But then when you mature as a company, it of course comes into finding the right contract manufacturers, distributors, commercial activities. But I really would like to highlight the team, people who they do their job, but they also do other job that needs to be done in these companies, because you always have too much to do. You have always too little resources, but you need to compete with the really international large players. So you need to do it in a smart way and have the right people on board. So I always highlight the team.
Robert, you're nodding along, but you also mentioned to me when we spoke last week that one of the concrete things that mattered to you was the ability to hire equipment from the university.
Yes, so the ecosystem at large, but I would second everything that we just heard here. Definitely the team is super important, and managing the risk at different stages, I would say also, because maybe it varies over the period. We've seen that very clearly. You can take different types of risks at different points during your journey. But then the whole ecosystem and the infrastructure that was available to us was really core. Very expensive equipment that we could certainly not have afforded to put our hands on if we would have had to buy everything from day one, but rather work together in a collaborative environment. That was instrumental to us to get where we are today.
So to both of you, what's the difference between doing research and developing a product?
Well, just talking about gradient tech, I would say we are not doing much research. We are doing development, so industrial development
but you used
nowadays.
To do research.
Yeah, but as I talking about the environment that I had as a researcher, I knew actually from my first day when starting my PhD ages ago that I was not going to become a researcher, but I enjoyed every day of doing research. But for me, it's fundamental that you do research to get innovative companies out there and then explore and get things into the market. So I was very, product focused in my research.
And what does that mean, to be product focused in your research?
For me, it meant, understanding which problems are there out there. Can we do a match between what we are doing, research on? And I think when you're not into research, you can think that it's very, basic research. The research I was used to was more or less, product development, but within the university. So it was more a bit the difficulties of getting it into research, even if it was close to
so you almost had the opposite.
Yeah, so we had more, that challenge within those research groups. I think that's fine, because obviously we made something very great from that. So that is research for me.
Research and product development, what are the differences?
There are similarities and differences. Maybe one clear difference, I would say, if you're doing a product, and we're both doing hardware, I think. I don't know so much about your company, but when you're doing hardware, of course, reliability and yield in production and those kind of things are, I think, very far from core research questions. In the kind of field where I am, you can work for a long time trying to find a device that does prove a certain phenomena or whatever you want to show. You can just repeat this. No, this one failed. I'll do a new one, and then you can repeat that until you can manage to show what you want to show. But of course, when you're producing units at volumes that needs to be reliable out at the customer, you have very different requirements. So I think that's a very clear difference in research and product development. This thinking about the life cycle of the device that you're doing, and not proving a specific function, because that should already been done. But the reliability of that's definitely a difference.
And for you, was that transition natural?
I've been going back and forth between industry and academia, so for me it was rather straightforward. But of course, it's a very big thing. It's interesting to see. Sometimes you talk to researchers and they are very focused on this fantastic innovative idea, and then they would think that now it's done. Let's just ship this out. But I think both of us know that a very large portion of their work is actually left, even though you have found something that you think is useful. To actually get that into a product, maybe you have still 80-90% of the work left to actually get that into something that you can sell at with reasonable conditions, whatever that might be.
Do you agree? Is that 80-90% of the work, and what does it consist of?
Yeah, well, in the medical device industry, I mean, you need CE marking, you need quality management systems, so you end up in a completely different world after a while. When you're out in the market with this kind of products, it's about customer complaints, very far from research. So that is reality, of course, and yield. Yes, I mean, where we are today, it's about, okay, how do we get from those 97% yield to 99? So I mean, very, very different. But it all started in research, and I think that's nice.
Robert, it's a lot of excitement about quantum computing, also a lot of uncertainty about timelines. What's your view?
Yes, this is a dangerous question to put your head out around. I don't think that there are useful quantum computers in several years. Maybe we have something that you could use in the sense that it's actually someone's going to buy this machine to do a computation for you instead of a classical computer. I think that's 10 years away, perhaps, at least.
Okay. Why?
It's really challenging, and progress is fantastic. We're doing amazing steps moving forward, but there are still large challenges ahead of us that we need to resolve, especially with scaling these machines to commercial useful systems. We're talking about things like number of qubits or the quality of these qubits, and the progression is fantastic, but it's still orders of magnitude of improvements needed before we are at something that you will be able to use in practice. So much time left.
Much time left. And what can we expect in 10 years' time when it all starts paying off?
I think these machines can do some really cool stuff once they're around. I'm not an expert in the exact applications, but I think people talk a lot about medical applications, for example. Synthesizing molecules is a very exciting, I think, for me, field where we hopefully could do things.
So Robert mentioned, the importance of being able to hire equipment. Anything else in your view that sort of universities and the university environment can do to make this challenging and long journey easier and better? And
I agree with that shorter. During our first years, for sure. But then, Uppsala is very famous for its, innovation system, incubation systems, with supporting companies and having, competences around that. So I think that was fundamental for us during the first years.
So what kind of support did you get?
Well, anything from mentors, senior persons who have done kind of these journeys before, who can share experience. Nowadays, at the stage where we are now, we are more, working with international boards, international advisors, so on. But still, since in Uppsala it's very much life science, I think we are good there at, sharing contacts, anything from advisors throughout the world. And so I think that getting a number of companies together who share and care, I believe very much in that. So, and it's all a bit connected with university still. So competences are, moving from university to industries back and forth. So I still value the connection with the university. And I would say, I help out now in sharing our journey for new PhD students or postdocs.
What do you tell them? What's your main message?
Well, I'm not honest with all the time and money it takes, but I try to be more the enthusiastic. Yes, do it.
Why not be honest?
It's tough to find all the money you need.
Yeah.
No, I try to really be honest with all this. You need good people. Find the people who you can, like, more or less, you need your second family to build a company like this. You need good board members. You need those who you can really trust. And go out there, be out in the market, for example. Don't look at Sweden, look at the world, be out there.
And the enthusiasm amongst your people that you work for.
You need enthusiasm.
Once in a while, you need to work on a Saturday, and if then you need to
once in a while,
have people that want to help out with that, right? And come in on a Saturday, even though it's a
and I think also, I mean, talking about research, maybe you're in the phase of life where you can be really, where you're okay to spend all that time, and you are enthusiastic because it takes
a lot of time
to build something like that.
Absolutely.
So a lot of time. Let's talk about the money. You mentioned it quickly. Is it very hard? That's what she said.
I don't know. Both yes and no, maybe. We were very lucky, but also quantum.
What does lucky mean?
Super hot.
It means
super hot, right? So for us, it hasn't been that hard actually. If I'm going to be a bit arrogant about it.
Yeah.
No, I think we managed, but we also had some good timings. We managed to get some soft money initially that was extremely useful for us. Some grants that got us sort of started. But I can imagine life science is even more costly than...
Well, medical device and diagnostics, we can talk a lot about the financing structure. For us, there is much more soft money around in the US than there is in Europe, for sure. So just looking at, I mean, we are only a few companies around in the world doing exactly this, antibiotic resistance testing. So it's a challenging when say, competitors get 10 times the amount compared to us here.
Because that's a point often made in the economic debate, isn't it? All the money is in the US, and that makes companies...
Yeah, and I'm sure if you ask them, it's not easy there too. But obviously there is much more, say, soft money, but also, say, from VC money, there is larger amount of money around there. So, but for a diagnostics company is, say, developing a product until a market-approved product, that's possibly the easiest thing. It's the commercial phase that is the challenging. That's when it really starts to cost. So, and that's also, say, a bit challenging from an investor point of view, that you know that it's about finding the strategic industrial partner for a company. It's you can't do the commercial journey yourself. So, but that's maybe a bit specific for medical device and diagnostics companies.
So, lastly, for those who want to better support the kind of journeys that you've been on and are on, what do they need to know? Just in general, as a society. I mean, the starting point here is that these things are so important for innovation in our societies and development in general.
Well, the easiest, as long as you need money before you break even or whatever, you need money. So financing is maybe not more difficult than that. As long as you need money for what you're doing, you need to find the money. But you can also find, say, smart money, where you get money together with competence. That's the very best. But I'm afraid that's, as long as you need money, that's the largest risk you have in this kind of companies. But adding, say, I always stress that we are maybe in Sweden lacking, say, senior expertise board members who have done these kind of journeys before, who have sold companies to large global players. So I would value even more of that competence going in, because I think we are very good at innovating, starting companies, but in this, say, diagnostics, it's about finding the buyer, exiting. I think we generally in Sweden can become stronger in exiting, but we are very good in innovating and starting, and maybe less competent in exiting.
That's very concrete point. More focus on exiting, and more money and more senior board members, or to pick from. Robert?
I'm not sure if you were asking if we want to create more companies or if you want to support the ones already around, but I think...
Probably support the ones already around, I think, yeah. But
I think we've had really good support actually in the infrastructure. Also, something maybe we didn't mention is the connection to the university in terms of talent and finding people.
Yep.
That's extremely challenging, especially, at least that's my experience, especially when you're a small company. When you're up below maybe 10 people, then I think most people see it as a very large risk starting at such a small company. And so for us, at least, it was very challenging recruiting up until about 10 people. After that, it became vastly much easier, I think.
Oh, so it's hard recruiting. People didn't want to join a small company?
Yes, because, you know, you take your job and you have an uncertain employee. I think that was something. So maybe something would be to help these small startups at that very early phase with recruitment, and especially in the high-tech area. And of course, we are also competing not only with influx of money, but also these people, they act on a global market. We've had a lot of people that we would like to have hired that went to Google or other huge players where the salaries are maybe 3-4 times what we could offer. So that's certainly something we could think about how to structure.
Yeah. Competition for talent, particularly at the early stage. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, Sara Torslund and Robert Rehan.
Thank you.
So we will now move to the award ceremony, but before we present the award, I'm very pleased to welcome Lotta Edholm, Minister for Upper Secondary School, Higher Education and Research. Minister, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here to highlight research, innovation and entrepreneurship. Sweden's development has been driven by people who have translated knowledge, ideas and experience into new solutions that in turn have become inventions, products, services and companies. It is through innovation that Sweden has built its industry, prosperity and competitiveness. It is therefore a great pleasure to recognize this year's recipients of the Global Award for Entrepreneurship Research, Professor Albert N. Link and Professor Donald S. Siegel. They are honored for their groundbreaking research on technology transfer and innovative entrepreneurship, which has highlighted previously overlooked drivers and processes within entrepreneurship and inspired a more nuanced research-based policy. Their work has significantly deepened our understanding of how entrepreneurs interact with surrounding institutions and environments, and has helped unlock entrepreneurial potential within higher education and the public sector. Their contributions show why research and innovation matter and why Sweden must continue to strengthen its position as a leading knowledge nation. Sweden is a strong innovation nation. We rank highly in international comparisons on research and development investment, and Sweden is ranked first in the European Innovation Scoreboard. But we must not take this position for granted. We must continue to work hard and invest in order to remain at the forefront. For us liberals, Sweden's future competitiveness depends on our ability to turn knowledge and new ideas into innovation, entrepreneurship and growth. During this parliamentary terms, the Liberals in the government have laid the foundation for one of the largest reinforcements of Swedish research and innovation in many, many years. In the bill, the government highlights three priorities. First, of course, excellence. Swedish research must be of the highest quality and be able to compete internationally. Secondly, internationalization. Sweden should be an active and attractive partner in global research collaboration. Third, innovation, of course. Research should benefit society, contribute to solutions to the greatest challenges, and strengthen our competitiveness. To achieve this, the government is making broad investments in groundbreaking research, in excellence clusters for advanced technology, in strengthened research infrastructure, and in strategic recruitment, so that Sweden can attract and retain the best researchers. Another central issue is the protection of academic freedom. It is a fundamental principle of an open and democratic society. It is also the foundation on which new ideas can flourish. Yet it can never be taken for granted. Threats and harassments directed at research risk creating an environment of self-censorship and silence. The government is strengthening support for the use of research results and facilitating collaboration between academia and industry. This is about ensuring that more research results lead to innovation and growth. The innovation ecosystem around universities plays a central role in promoting entrepreneurship. In that ecosystem, university holding companies are one of the key actors by providing long-term support and building up expertise. The holding companies help ensure that more research results reach the market. The government is therefore strengthening the holding companies with 70 million Swedish kronor from 2028. We are also strengthening support for the verification of research results with strong commercialization potential. In addition, we are providing funding for test and demonstration environments, which are crucial for shortening the path from research to utilization. A further key factor for Sweden's continued development as an innovation nation is ensuring that more people choose to study STEM subjects. Therefore, the government has developed a national STEM strategy and appointed a STEM delegation to coordinate this work from preschool to doctoral education. But the STEM strategy is about more than educational choices. Fundamentally, it's about Sweden's future supply of skills. It's about who will develop the next generation of technology, conduct the research of tomorrow, and build the companies that do not yet exist. This is why this work must begin early. It begins at school. For Sweden to remain a strong and as a knowledge and innovation nation, we need a truly good school system. Unfortunately, we can see today that 1 in 4 15-year-olds leave compulsory schools without the ability to read a simple text. Mathematics skills have also declined, and too many pupils do not have the calm and orderly learning environment they need. This is serious. We liberals believe that every pupil should acquire the basic knowledge needed to understand the world, shape their own life, and contribute to society. For some, the path ahead may perhaps lead to a career in research, to entrepreneurship, or to an innovation that changes the world. This is why we must bring school back to basics, to a school where knowledge is at the center, where safety, order, and calm learning environment are taken for granted, where books outnumber screens, and where teachers have the time, authority, and working conditions they need to focus on their most important task, teaching. Because without strong basic knowledge, it becomes difficult to build excellence. And without a school system that gives more children real opportunities, Sweden risks losing talent we cannot afford to lose. When we strengthen schools, we also strengthen Sweden's future capacity for innovation. But schools is only, of course, the beginning. For ideas to grow all the way from knowledge to research, from research to innovation, and from innovation to societal benefits, we need a coherent system. By reinforcing excellence, internationalization and innovation, by supporting technology transfer and utilization, and by ensuring that more people have the skills needed for the future, we are laying the foundation for continued progress. This effort will help secure Sweden's position at the forefront of global research collaboration, strengthen our technological base, and ensure that research continues to contribute to welfare, growth, and resilience. The achievements of Professor Link and Siegel illustrate the importance of understanding how ideas move from research to society and how innovation emerges when academia, industry and the public sector work together. Their work shows technology transfer and utilizations matter, and why strong structures are needed to turn research into innovation and societal benefit. These are also very principles that Sweden seeks to strengthen. I look forward to learning more about the research being awarded here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister. So the Minister really stressing the importance of research moving into society. And now I would like to invite Lars Baxell, entrepreneur and chairman of Entreprenörskap Forum, and Sylvia Schwag-Säger, president of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, IVA, up to the stage.
Thank you.
There. Lars.
Yes. So you have already heard that we are celebrating today that Entreprenörskap Forum has awarded the Global Award for Entrepreneurship Research for 30 years. Think about that. The research areas just shows how much multifaceted and also complex these disciplines are. And I actually took the time, so you have to listen to this. Calm, it's not going to take too long. Our prize winners have contributed to shaping our understanding for the central role of entrepreneurship. It is different shapes and in forms for job creation, economic growth, and prosperity. They have documented how society shapes entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurship shapes society. Among other things, they have examined entrepreneurial finance and the local situated dynamics of entrepreneurship. Others have led the way into academic study of what entrepreneurs do and how they think and how they act. Some of our prize winners, including today's recipients, are also communicating creators, founders of scientific journals and conferences dedicated to entrepreneurship and innovation. Through their efforts, entrepreneurship and innovation have been established as vibrant fields of research. Think about that. So the contribution from the research field is not just academically challenging and inspiring, but also to a high degree works as vehicles and paths for many young people when they are taking their first steps as entrepreneurs. And at the center of the research is the individual entrepreneur. This is why it's so interesting. And I believe that there are very few fields within economics and business administration that can generate more interesting areas to dive into. It seems like the magnitude is indefinite. It's simply so much more out there to find out. It also creates new and different constellations and platforms for exchange of ideas, such as between academia and business, but also when research-oriented organizations cooperate to bring more knowledge to society. Therefore, I'm very glad to be standing here together with Sylvia today, and who is the head of the Royal Academy of Engineering Science, where I'm a member.
Absolutely.
With a strong tradition in the field of what Entrepreneurship Forum has, they have decided to jointly with us initiate programs within research of entrepreneurship next year. and many years to come. One final remark. Entrepreneurship research is still a very young field, and we are looking forward to congratulate in 2046 the 50th Universe Prize winner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sylvia, as mentioned, Eva is one of the sponsors of this award. Why is this prize important from your perspective?
Well, there's several reasons. First of all, we're extremely happy to be part of this award because we really like working with Entrepreneurship Forum. We think it's a really good combination or collaboration with the Engineering Academy, the Academy of Engineering Sciences, which is the oldest in the world, which has a very strong focus on technology and engineering, but also with this very important research that is being honored through this award. So we think it's a very fruitful and a very well-functioning collaboration. That's my first point. The second point, I think, is that we are, and people have heard me say this perhaps before, but I really fundamentally believe that we are at a very critical time in history where societies are fundamentally stressed and challenged. They're challenged by the climate change, by geopolitical pressures, by the weakening of democracy. There are many things, and also this extremely disruptive technological development. And so in this time when societies are quite challenged, I think that research and innovation on the one hand and entrepreneurship on the other hand need each other more than ever. I think both sides are also being affected. For example, if you look at AI, it's really transforming how research and innovation happens. But also, as some of the entrepreneurs mentioned, we are working or we're operating in an environment where there's also some kind of a systemic competition where it's not just about having the best ideas or the best researchers, but you also have to make sure that you have the resources, the talent, the agility, and the speed to bring things to market. So I think that this is a very critical moment where this collaboration is perhaps more important than ever. And we think, as you mentioned in the introduction, that it is something that is worth maintaining, this tradition of honoring world-leading entrepreneurship research. It's a great tradition. It's an important tradition for a country like Sweden, as the minister said, that cares about engineering, research, and innovation and doing benefit for society. And then, moreover, it doesn't have a bad track record, this prize, with some recipients also receiving other acknowledgements along the way.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. Please stay here. And I now also would like to invite Ivo Sander, professor at Uppsala University and chairman of the award committee, to read the motivation.
Yes, thank you. And first of all, I'm a bit shocked, actually, Catherine.
Oh.
It's supposed to be Lars and me here, and now a lot of people on stage, right? And also, I should mention, you have already had motivations for the prize. I'm not had planned to read the entire motivation as formulated by the prize committee, but that's not necessary anymore, so I'll just take a few parts of this. Before I get to this and to our prize winners, of course, we're waiting for that, just briefly about the process, what happens behind the scenes here. So first of all, this is really the end of a yearly cycle. This is where it all ends, and we're happy to be here. It starts differently with a round of nominations. And these nominations, they can come from different parts. Full professors at Swedish universities. They can come from the editors of 7 leading entrepreneurship journals. They can also nominate candidates for the prize. And the prize winners can also motivate or nominate new prize winners. So once you have received the prizes, you are free to nominate as well. But you have also been editors of leading journals, so you've had that possibility before. Notably, also the prize committee members can nominate candidates. They cannot self-nominate. That's the only limitation there. So this is what happens. So every year there's a longer list of nominated candidates. So to cut things short, On this list, the prize committee members go through this list and they see which of these people would we like to assess a bit further. So we do take help from external experts in the field. And they then write assessments of these nominees, which is of great help to us. Now, every year there is 1 or 2 meetings on the candidates on a short list. So that's when things get real, and we can have long discussions about who on this list of candidates should receive the award. And that essentially concludes the cycle. Once that is decided, things are kicked into gear here by our Entrepreneurship Forum. And this is why we are here today. So Donald and Al, this is all behind us. We're very happy to have you here. Let's get to the motivation here. I shouldn't keep you because we're looking forward to what you wanted to say. I wanted to take just 2 small parts on this. And one part which I think is important here on the nomination, you can look it up at the Entrepreneurship Forum. Their pioneering research, we should add, and promotion of technology transfer in different contexts have unlocked the entrepreneurial potential of universities and government bodies alike. I think that's very important. A lot of things have been unlocked here by their research. And their scholarly leadership is an exemplary case of how scientific rigor and world-class research can go hand in hand with societal impact and the promotion of real-world entrepreneurship. That's absolutely fantastic. So we have 2 world-leading scholars who really contribute to what happens in society. That's extremely rare. Now, I'll just give you an AI summary of everything, the short nomination. For those of you who need that, now I should just add, no AI has gone into this motivation. So the short motivation is for pioneering research on technology transfer and innovative entrepreneurship, which again has unlocked the potential of university and public sector entrepreneurship. So this, I know everybody here, and me included, we probably think, I wish I could have done that. But only you could. So I'm very looking forward to listening to you, to what you have to say. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sander. Now, please welcome Albert N. Link, Professor of Economics at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and Donald S. Siegel, Regents Professor and Co-Executive Director of the Global Center for Technology Transfer at Arizona State University. Yes. And Professor Sander and Minister Edholm will present the diplomas and the flowers. I believe we're not allowed to touch the statue. I remember there was a discussion last year about that.
Sorry for the delay.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic work.
Yes. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for your kind.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. And if you just stay there a little bit, just for a photo, I believe.
Thank you.
This is for the wife. You know.
Congratulations.
I look forward to speaking at your summit.
Oh, great. Yes.
In a
Look forward
couple
to
days.
That's fantastic.
Right, right.
Just, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the first lecture on a road not taken.
Okay.
I can, do you want me to?
Well, I give these to my wife.
Oh, yes, obviously. Following instructions. I mean, she can hold on to the diploma as well.
Okay.
Professor, I will give you this instead.
Now, how does this work?
There. Is that right?
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here. many individuals have told me prior to today's event that I will feel right at home. Everyone will make you feel right at home when you are here, and that has been true. People have gone out of their way in an exceptional manner. Please stop. And the reason is very simple, because I feel right at home. One of my chores is to do the dishes after dinner, and there's going to be too many plates for me to handle. So the title of my talk today will make sense as we move along. And this road not taken has really made all the difference in terms of the growth of my career. And I want to share that with you today. The beginning is the most important part of the work. Well, I'm not going to start at the beginning, because then you'll know when I was born. You'll feel committed to sending me birthday cards, and then we'll go back and forth for a few years, and that becomes awkward. I'll use this slide once in a while when I teach an undergraduate class for freshmen and sophomores at the university on science and technology and society. And every once in a while, someone will say to me, "Did you know Pluto?" Plato and I were not classmates. He was a year ahead of me. My academic career started at the University of Richmond, and I was fortunate to complete my major in mathematics and physics after the first 2 years. And then I had 2 more years to explore and try different disciplines and find out what I really liked. And I knew that I wanted to go into college teaching. But the mathematics and physics, I didn't think I wanted to spend my career putting equations on a blackboard for the rest of my life. So the rest of my life, I put equations on a blackboard, then on a whiteboard, then on transparencies, and now on a PDF. After leaving the university, I went to Tulane University in Louisiana, and I got a classical education in economics. Very traditional education, excellent education, which I appreciated very much at the time. Then it comes time to pick a committee and to write a dissertation. Well, I didn't want to write a dissertation in a traditional manner, as many of my classmates had done. And so I started looking around, and I read an article by Robert Solow, Nobel laureate, in which he showed that 87.5% of economic growth in the economy from 1909 to 1949 could not be explained in terms of traditional capital and labor. He attributed it to technological advancement. Others at that time attributed it to being a measure of ignorance. Well, I decided to pursue a path toward understanding ignorance. My first academic job was at Auburn University. And here's where I departed from that classical education. I became interested in entrepreneurship. I met a colleague of mine who was a historian of thought scholar. And we started to look into the origins of the concept of entrepreneurship. Who the entrepreneur was, what he or she did. And we traced the origins back to some writings of Aristotle. Bob Hebert was my co-author, which turned out to be invaluable because many of the original documents that we looked at were written in French, which Bob could translate. This was before laptop computers, as you know. And 2 books came out, which at that time did not appear to me to be as fundamental to my career as they actually turned out. After that, I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. This was a redirection. My classical training turned out to be critical. It turned out to be a complement to my study of entrepreneurship. And while there, I got into the empirical side of the study of entrepreneurship. And then a new door opened, quite unexpectedly. Research Triangle Park is a science and technology park that is bounded by Duke University, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and North Carolina State University. And it was a little unusual for me to accept this, but it just seemed like the right thing to do. Well, it turned out to be archival research. Year after year of going through files, going through minutes of corporate discussions about how to build up a research park in North Carolina, which was ranking in the high 40s in terms of the states in the country, in terms of industrialization. It was very much an agrarian society. It was a society where we were experiencing what was called a brain drain, where the better students from the 3 universities were going elsewhere to find jobs. They weren't available in North Carolina at that time. The history that I penned, A Generosity of Spirit, is still my favorite book. I've been fortunate to publish about 70 books, and this still ranks as #1 for a couple reasons. It's the only book I have ever written where there's not a typo. Well, in this book, I learned 4 important things. I learned about public sector entrepreneurial leadership, altruism, individuals building up a science park for the good of North Carolina, public sector support of private sector entrepreneurship, the transfer of technical knowledge from one organization in the park to another organization in the park, and agglomeration, the importance of being together, companies together to exchange information. And all of this led to an understanding of what was to become public sector entrepreneurship. Then a new opportunity again opened the door. For 29 years, I had the privilege of being editor-in-chief of the Journal of Technology Transfer. We had a meeting earlier today, and I relayed that what had been so nice to everyone that I have met here so far, no one came up to me and said, "Hello, my name is so-and-so. Do you remember rejecting the paper that I submitted?" True story. The National Academy of Sciences became interested in science and technology parks. And I was lucky enough to have a role in the research that they were doing. Well, what I learned there was the importance of universities as becoming anchor tenants for the science parks that were being developed in the United States. So now what is happening is I've got a little bit of an entrepreneurship background. I have the mathematical tools as a researcher. I have an understanding of innovation firsthand, which I learned from firms that are located in Research Triangle Park, and now the role of public universities. 2 books came out of this. One titled Public Sector Entrepreneurship, which brings together my classical training, because there are mathematical models in there, as well as case-based interviews with entrepreneurs, policymakers who have influenced entrepreneurs, and the like. Now, I tell graduate students whenever they make a presentation, never read slides to the audience. They can read on their own. Please read this. This is very, very important. It came from the 2025-26 Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. You'll be quizzed on this later. I think this is quite true. Can you say? This echoes what we heard moments ago by the various speakers and what many of you who are in the room have said individually to both myself and to Don. Now, some of my research over the last decade has addressed a number of, I think, fairly interesting questions. And Lars, as you said, there are many more questions that need to be looked at. How entrepreneurial firms got started. Why are some successful and some unsuccessful? I'm a strong believer that one learns from failure. Unintended consequences of public support of entrepreneurial efforts. This has created a brouhaha in Washington, D.C., where firms, small entrepreneurial firms who have received Small Business Innovation Research Awards are developing technologies, but they are selling their technologies overseas. Universities as research partners and homophily, if you know that word, birds of a feather flock together. That is collaboration, agglomeration between principal investigators and owners of the same gender, the same education, the same training. Now, since then, these are the topics that I have looked at and will be talking to various venues this coming week. The economics of ideas, ideation, which we talked about at Magnus's shop earlier today. Market failure and using market failure as the motivation for entrepreneurial support. Surgical robotic technology. And Sweden, I have come to learn, is starting to move up in becoming a leader in that area. Portfolios of external knowledge and their importance, which I will have the honor of talking about at IVA later this week. And then the economic role of support for small businesses. Well, that's my journey. Plato to Robert Frost to the Beatles. You can't go many places and get a smattering like that. So what is next? What is next is to look at what I call innovation capital. We hear about physical capital all the time, equipment, new technology. We hear about human capital all the time, especially in the economics. Individuals, highly educated, highly trained. We hear about financial capital. We hear about social capital. What I am visioning in terms of innovation capital are not standalone resources, but rather the complementary nature of those resources, which I have illustrated here in terms of a multiplicative effect. And so that's where my research is going in the future. And perhaps I'll have the opportunity to share it with various other researchers at some time in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep you here for just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your stage will very soon be yours. So two quick follow-ups. Innovation capital, that's your next thing. Why should we call everything capital? I mean, human capital was a controversial term when it first came out. Why is it useful to talk about innovation capital?
Well, it's a buzzword, and I'm not clever enough to depart from the traditions.
Okay, very honest answer.
So, you know, it's hard to make friends, and so this is one way I can...
Yeah. Is it just a buzzword? I mean, why is this the next step for you?
Well, if you go back, and here's where context is important, to the early philosophers who talked about what we now call production functions. They talked about capital and labor coming together. For those who were trained in economics and had a principles textbook by Samuelson, it was guns and butter, all types of trade-offs between resources. And the word capital has just worked its way into the vernacular of economics and other disciplines.
And you said that you're a big believer in learning from failure. Well, have you yourself learned from failure on this journey?
Well, I haven't had my growth spurt, so I have failed to become a professional basketball player. But we have studied with other colleagues, Don in particular, projects that are undertaken by the SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Program, and there are similar programs like that in Sweden and in other countries. And one thing that we find is that some of those projects fail. They just are cut off at an early stage. They don't meet their goals. I was fortunate to have a PhD student who developed a interesting model of the economics of failure and what we have learned from that, and what are the covariates that one looks at that describe failure. It's often a small-sized firm, a firm without experience coming to that technology.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
very much, and congratulations.
Okay.
Please, Professor.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. This feels like my second bar mitzvah. So before I begin my Torah portion, I want to publicly announce that I will be declaring the prize money as a tip. And that's because our president has said no tax on tips. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to declare it as overtime, because there's no tax on overtime. Now, being the last speaker at such an event, following such luminaries, is quite daunting. I feel like Elizabeth Taylor's 8th husband. On his wedding night. I know what I have to do, but I'm not exactly sure how to make it interesting. So in order to make it interesting, I'm going to begin with a confession. And my confession is that I am a member of a cult. And it's a cult of academics in a wide variety of social science disciplines and business administration fields who study the managerial and public policy implications of technology transfer and academic entrepreneurship. And I'd like to think that I helped develop this cult. And what I'm going to try to do is convince you to join the cult. And I'm going to take Lars up on his example of trying to think about 2 new directions for research. I am going to talk about the past, because I think a lot of people in this room are not that familiar with some of the lessons learned from this literature and some of the key stylized facts that I think will excite you to join the cult. Now, first of all, we've spent a long time today talking about tech transfer without actually defining it. And really what we're talking about here, and why it's important, is we're talking about moving discoveries from the lab to the marketplace, but to both private and public use. So getting this right is extremely important. And when I say getting it right, I'm going to talk a lot about managing it, not just policy, but managing it at various institutions. Now, there's been an explosion. Everyone knows this. There's been an explosion of tech transfer at universities, patenting, licensing, startups. It's all been going on. And not surprisingly, there's been a concomitant rise in academic analysis of that phenomenon. So you have a huge burgeoning literature on agents and institutions involved in this process. Entrepreneurs, tech transfer offices, property-based institutions, which are very important in this context, incubators, accelerators, science parks, industry university centers on campus, which have exploded, and then, of course, the entrepreneurial dimension of tech transfer, which in many ways is perhaps the most interesting. Now, what I'm going to try to do, besides engaging in shameless self-promotion, which is what all academics do, is try to highlight some of the lessons learned from the literature. Give you a little bit of a history of this. When we first started studying this topic, there was a very simple question, which is, how do we measure performance? What is performance, right? Universities were just doing this. It just started, basically, in the last 40 years. So how do we measure it? And we're economists, so we think of everything as a production function, or a cost function, or a distance function, and we measure efficiency. And we measure both absolute and relative efficiency. Very important. But we also need to know why some universities do better than others, right? We want to not just measure performance, but we want to explain it and try to understand why some universities do better. Well, it turns out, not surprisingly, that incentives matter. So Al and I had a paper that we wrote where we showed that if you allocate more of the revenue to the faculty members, they're more likely to engage in technology transfer. So incentives matter. Sociologists have found, not surprisingly, they did some excellent work on star scientists in the biotechnology industry, where networks were very important, that social networks matter. So having strong social networks, hiring star scientists with strong social networks matter. Janet Berkowitz and Marianne Feldman, who's a member of our center at Marianne Feldman, who won this award, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, wrote a very interesting paper that showed that it mattered who the department chairs were in academic departments. She compared chemistry departments across the country and found that those department chairs that really believed in this were able to inspire and motivate their faculty to engage in this activity. And then finally, I've devoted most of the last, certainly the last decade, in trying to open up the black box. What are some of the organizational practices that universities can implement to manage technology transfer better? And I'm going to talk about that a lot. But here are some stylized facts that I think are relevant. The first is that despite the fact that, for example, in the US, faculty are required to disclose their inventions to the university. So every year, I sign an intellectual property agreement with my university. And it says the intellectual property that I create belongs to the university. By the way, that's not true in Sweden, right? You have professor's privilege. But we don't have that in the US. Okay, well, it turns out, guess what we found in our surveys? For example, in Arizona, 5% of the faculty admit that they're not disclosing, which is probably a lower bound, right? Because it's illegal, not to disclose. So this is a real problem. There's something wrong when faculty are not disclosing their inventions, and we need to figure out what that is. We also hear the claim, and this one is important for the naysayers. In this room, I'm kind of preaching to the choir. You all believe that it's good for academics to be engaged in tech transfer and entrepreneurship. But there are many on campus who don't feel the same way. And one of the arguments that they make is that academics who become engaged in this do less basic research, that it hurts us as a society because they actually do less basic research. Well, guess what? They're wrong. And the empirical evidence decisively proves that they're wrong. In fact, many faculty are more productive in their research And of course, that does not surprise me, having interviewed now over 200 academics and learned from them. The first thing you learn about them is that they care more about their labs than they do about their families. They really love their labs, and they plow back their money into the lab, into equipment, into postdocs, into the human and physical capital that they need to do their research, which is what they live for. Now, another trend, another stylized facts that's really important is that universities have shifted their focus away, and this is a really good thing, in my opinion. They've shifted their focus away from patent and license to startup. And again, this goes back to the idea, and Alice talked about this as well, that we have ecosystems, fully developed entrepreneurial ecosystems on these campuses and in the surrounding region. Now, what is the evidence on faculty-based startups? I have to admit, the evidence is kind of mixed on that. It's not clear that faculty-based startups are more likely to be successful than observationally equivalent non-faculty startups. But one thing that we do know, for those of us, like myself, who champion student entrepreneurship, that it's the student-led startups that actually add more value, as opposed to the faculty member startups. Very interesting for strategy formulation at the university level. And then there's an interesting result that relates to immigration policy. It turns out, and a lot of studies have showed this, with patents, with startups, I believe with licenses as well, that foreign-born academics are more likely to engage in academic entrepreneurship. So if you have, as a nation, a policy of promoting academic entrepreneurship, it might not be a wise thing to do to restrict scientist mobility. So that's another stylized fact. Then again, and then finally, I think it's important to be mindful of the standard critiques that we hear from industry about working with the university. Okay? In the US, I know this is maybe a little stronger than in some other countries, but universities believe that, industry believes that universities are too aggressive in exercising intellectual property rights. They're too bureaucratic, they're too inflexible, and they have cognitive dissonance. They believe that their intellectual property is worth a lot more than it really is. So we still have that tension with the industry. Now, new directions. I'm following up on your suggestion. Where do we go? Well, it turns out, and again, this is actually consistent with what you said, is that we have to think about the human dimension of scientists. How do scientists think? How do we manage them in the workplace? So in 2018, I wrote a paper with Rachel Balvin and some others, and we sort of laid it out. I'm an economist, but I'm also an imperialist as an academic. So I'll work with anyone in any field to answer a question that I think is important. And the question that I think is important is, how do we get faculty more engaged in academic entrepreneurship? Well, in order to get them engaged, we have to think about them as people. And what we've done, what we did in that paper, that Academy of Management Perspectives paper in 2018, is say, look, these are 6 areas that organizational behavior scholars, human resource management scholars have studied. There's huge literatures on each of these topics. The identity of the organization, the identity of the individual, organizational justice, which refers to perceptions of fairness in the workplace. We're going to take all of these OB concepts, work-life balance, leadership, competencies that people acquire through education. So we're looking at education, what motivates them, intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, and we're going to apply it in the context of academic entrepreneurship. We're going to invade the space, as an intellectual, invade the OB space by applying their theories to this context. And it's really taken off. We've been able to publish papers in the top journals in management by focusing on these the human dimension. And we want others to join us. So we think that there's a lot of potential for people who want to do research on the human side of academic entrepreneurship. Number 2, new direction. And this one is really going to be controversial. I doubt it will be controversial in Sweden, but I know it will be controversial in the US, which is probably why I waited to present it here. And what we're trying to do in this paper is really change the message about tech transfer and academic entrepreneurship. Academic entrepreneurship and tech transfer has really focused on the financial gains and economic gains from tech transfer. Believe me, I'm not a Marxist, okay? I love capitalism and I believe in that, but I don't think that's the only message that we need to deliver, the economic and financial gains. And so we have to think about, this is basically a fundamental shift in how we think about tech transfer and academic entrepreneurship, and more importantly, how we assess it. And I have to admit, again, as a world-class opportunist, that I was doing this in response to the National Science Foundation, which had said, listen, we don't just want to look at the economic impact of tech transfer. We want to look at the social impact. We really want to try to measure that, and that's going to be a real challenge to do that. And what we did in this paper, Professor Maribel Guerrero and I, is kind of lay it out. And we said that you can link tech transfer and academic entrepreneurship to the creation of public goods. And we started out by looking at general purpose technologies, which are major transformative technologies that change production functions in existing industries that lead to new industries themselves. And tech transfer has played an important role in that. So what we did, and this is part of a paper that I wrote where I basically documented all of the 50 major innovations in the post-war period and showed that they all began at a university or a federal lab, a national lab or public research organization, or both. And universities played a critical role in the development of all of these major innovations. And these are, your general purpose technologies, computers and the internet, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, pharmacogenomics, everything. So, what are we saying? Well, we're saying that technology transfer has led to these public interest goods and public interest technologies. And these are some examples. So when we think of these public interest goods, we're thinking about things that affect the environment, transportation, energy, and then maybe the most important one, public health, which we saw during the pandemic. And then public interest technologies are the applications of technologies to advance social goals or goals regarding equity. And in the US, my university, and I think it's about 50 other public research universities, have kind of formed a network to develop these public interest technologies. So, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that if we truly want to shift the focus of tech transfer somewhat away from the financial, just purely financial economic side, and we want to stress this the pro-social technology transfer. One thing that I failed to mention, which I think underscores the importance of moving in this direction, is that the younger generation of faculty, I've been surveying faculty now for many years, the younger generation of faculty has much stronger pro-social motivations than the previous generation. So in our survey of faculty that I mentioned before, where they weren't disclosing their inventions, By the way, one of the reasons why they didn't disclose is because they thought the university was moving too slow to get their innovations out in the marketplace. So they had very strong pro-social motivations, so much so that they were willing to work around the university. So we want to take advantage of that. And we have one sort of recommendation is to repurpose intellectual property rights, as we did during the pandemic, right? You may recall President Trump's Operation Warp Speed, which was lifting the regulatory restrictions on the development, approval of the vaccines to get the vaccines out the door. And then the universities stepped up and became a lot less aggressive in exercising their IP that related to the COVID vaccines and related to the treatments. So we can do that. We also have to make sure, because we are dealing with public entities, that we are careful about preventing fraud and tax evasion and misappropriation of fund. We have to realize that if we're doing these more complicated kinds of movements of innovations, we're going to be working with all different types of intermediaries, including NGOs. And then finally, I gave you my sermon about the importance of individual factors. So universities really need to step up and address some of these questions. So for example, on the organizational justice paper, what we found is that it matters how you treat the faculty. That faculty who have a bad experience with the tech transfer office, that faculty who have department chairs that are not supporting their efforts to engage in tech transfer, they're just going to give up. They're not going to do it. So universities have to be mindful of that and really change the way that they manage technology transfer. So those are the two new directions that I wanted to point out: the human dimension, the pro-social tech transfer. I started out by mentioning my bar mitzvah. If my mother, who presided over my first bar mitzvah, were here today, that would be Shira Golda's grandmother, Joan Schwartz Siegel. Here's what she would say. She would say, "Was heut dik azoi lang genommen?" And that's Yiddish for, "What took you so long?"
Thank you very much. I think we still need an elevator pitch to join your cult.
Okay.
Yeah?
What do you want from me?
Just a short elevator pitch to join the cult. That's where you started. You should all join your cult.
When I say cult, I mean people who do research on this topic. So what I try to do is inspire people to do research on tech transfer and academic entrepreneurship who might not normally do it. So it's really been a challenge to get, because I work with a lot of professors in management who really don't think about science and technology. They only think about organizational behavior. So they focus on, let's say, workplace justice, or let me just look at some of these.
Yeah.
These are the issues that they focus on.
Yeah.
And they don't think about the context. This is one of the frustrations that, and Al has mentioned this too, right? That a lot of people don't really care about the context. They don't understand that their research can have an impact on policy. Like, take this journal, for example. This is called the Journal of Applied Psychology. And we had this paper where there have been thousands of papers on workplace justice, but not a single one of them has dealt with the academic entrepreneur or scientists. So we finally got this paper. This paper was rejected at a bunch of journals, by the way. It was rejected at ASQ, it was rejected at AMJ, it was rejected at Org Science. Finally, we found someone, an editor, who got it. And she came to us after the paper was accepted, and she said, I liked your paper because I was asked to be on a faculty committee to study, how scientists are treated at the university or something like that. And she said, I never thought, and she's an expert on organizational justice. So she said, I never really thought that my research was relevant to that context.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that you would have that in your mind, but that's what she said. And so that's what I'm trying to do when I say inspire people to join the cult. And I think it usually, what we're seeing in academia is, so for example, I had a PhD student. I'm in a school of public affairs. I'm not in a business school. And she, was asking for a topic, and I said, you're not going to get a job teaching public administration. You're not going to get an academic job teaching public administration, but you can get an academic job teaching entrepreneurship in a business school. So let's study championing and leadership in academic entrepreneurship. And that was her dissertation. We got a paper in research policy. She got a great academic job at the University of Bristol. And everybody in the school was saying, well, how did this happen? Well, it happened because I used my brain. That's how it happened. It's common sense, right? I mean, take the theory that you have, right? The theories of championing, the theories of leadership, the theories of organizational justice, the theories of identity, and apply it in this context. To me, it was very simple. And now she's a member of the cult.
Ah.
Why? Because she benefited from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Siegel. And thank you all. The evening is, of course, not over. There will be drinks and there will be dinner. And please enjoy the Stockholm sunshine. They do say that Swedish summer is the best week of the year. Before we close, I would also like to mention that Entreprenörskapsforum also present an award to the Young Entrepreneurship Researcher of the Year, speaking of young people who have joined the cult. And this year's recipient is here with us in the audience, Dr. Åsa Keketsi, Stockholm University and Jönköping International Business School, but she will officially receive the award in August at a different event. So congratulations are in order. So that brings us to the end of the program here from stage. It's been a pleasure to guide you through this part of the evening. A warm thank you to all our speakers, Sara Torslund, Robert Rehammar, Minister Lotta Edholm, Lars Baxell, Sylvia Svagsäger, Ivo Sander, Albert Enlink, and Donald S. Siegel. Thank you all for being here and celebrating the Global Award for Entrepreneurship Research. And as Lars said, many years to come and many more awards to celebrate. So thank you and have a wonderful evening.